Welcome back to SpookyShade, where stories never die and some forests grow inside your mind. This is part 5 of the Hollow Pines, Echoes Under the Needles. Time has passed since anyone dared set foot beneath the twisted boughs of hollow pines. But memories are seeds, and the forest's hunger lingers in every whispered rumor, every name forgotten, every spiral scar hidden beneath a sleeve. Some say the woods are shrinking, fading into legend. But others know the truth. You don't have to enter hollow pines to be haunted by it. Sometimes, just hearing its name is enough. In quiet towns and sleepless cities, stories spread like roots beneath the earth. Stories of people who vanish, or who return changed, or who remember lives that were never theirs. And always, the pines are waiting, patient and silent, their echoes drifting on the wind. So dim the lights. Listen close. If you hear your name whispered in the darkness, remember, the forest is never far away. You're listening to SpookyShade. Welcome to the Echoes Under the Needles. Part 5. Echoes Under the Needles. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, the people of Ashgrove still talk about hollow pines. They say the woods at the edge of town grow a little darker every year, that sometimes, just after sunset, when the wind is right, you can hear voices whispering among the trees. Not animal sounds, not wind, but words. Names half remembered, stories that don't belong to anyone you know. No one remembers exactly when the disappearances began. Old newsprint yellowed in the local archives tells of hikers gone missing, of families who came to picnic and left with one fewer child than they brought. Search parties found nothing. Only strange patterns carved into tree trunks, spirals of stones in hidden clearings, and once, the tattered remains of a notebook, its pages blank except for the words. The roots remember. Some say it's a curse. Others say the forest is hungry, that it feeds not on flesh, but on memory. Most avoid the woods now. The trails have overgrown. The old warning signs have faded beneath layers of moss and spray paint. Only the truly lost, or the truly reckless, dare to go wandering under those endless, whispering boughs. But sometimes, when the fog is thick and the moon new, someone will come out of hollow pines. A child, pale and silent, with spiral scars twisting down their arms. A wanderer, eyes blank, who can't recall their own name, but hums an ancient lullaby the town has never known. They never stay long. They slip away before dawn, or vanish in the crowd. Sometimes, the memory of them slips away, too, so quickly that you can't quite remember if you ever saw them at all. But the stories remain. At the edge of the woods, on a fallen log smothered in moss, a stranger sometimes sits at twilight, someone who looks almost familiar, but whose face you can never quite remember. They trace patterns in the dirt with a trembling finger, humming softly. If you listen closely, you might hear them whisper, "I was here. I remember you. Remember me." But the pines above only sigh, ancient and patient, waiting for another story to join their roots. I came to Ashgrove chasing ghosts. Maybe that sounds dramatic, but it's the truth. I'd read about the disappearances, old headlines, scattered forums, a thread on an urban exploration board that ended abruptly with a photo of mossy spirals. It was the sort of story that stuck in your mind, the kind that gnawed at your sense of what's possible. So when my contract work brought me near the town, I couldn't help but ask about hollow pines. Most locals shut down the conversation quickly, shaking their heads, changing the subject. "Nothing but trouble in those woods," said the barista at the corner coffee shop, setting down my cup with a finality that told me not to pry. But the stories were everywhere. Graffiti on the bathroom wall at the gas station, the roots remember in jagged marker, warnings scratched into picnic tables at the edge of the park, rumors half-spoken in the grocery aisle. On my third night in town, I found myself standing at the forest's edge. I don't remember what drew me there, boredom, curiosity, or something older and colder moving beneath my skin. The tree-line was thick, nearly black, but not silent. There was the hum of insects, yes, but beneath that, I could swear I heard a second chorus, the faintest suggestion of voices, rising and falling in some unknowable cadence. A wind moved through the pines, heavy with the scent of rain and sap, and my heart thudded in my chest with the uneasy thrill of standing at the threshold of a dare. I pressed forward only a few steps. The temperature seemed to drop immediately, the ground soft and spongy beneath my boots. I looked down and saw spirals traced in the fallen needles, too precise to be chance. Something flickered in the corner of my eye, a shadow moving where no branch should. I spun, but there was nothing. Just trees, just darkness, just the awareness that I was no longer alone. A memory surfaced, my mother's warning, long ago. Never go where you're not wanted. I hesitated, all bravado fleeing in a rush of goosebumps. Behind me, I heard movement, someone on the trail. I turned and saw a girl, maybe 16, standing at the path's edge. Her face was pale, her eyes too wide, spiral scars twisting down her forearms. She looked at me, then at the woods, then back again. "Don't go in," she whispered. "It remembers everyone." I tried to speak, to ask her name, but she only shook her head, stepping back into the shadows. A chill ran through me, the forest pressing closer. The air felt thick with secrets and sorrow. I backed away, breath shallow, heart pounding. I didn't run, but I didn't look back, either. Later, in my motel room, I tried to write down what had happened, but the details slipped away, like a dream dissolving in daylight. Still, that night, as I drifted toward sleep, I heard a voice whispering from the pines, old and sad and familiar. "Remember, remember." I left Ash Grove the next morning, telling myself I'd had enough of ghost stories and small-town superstition. My bags were packed before dawn. The motel door clicked behind me, and the distant hum of the highway felt like a promise of normalcy. But Hollow Pines followed. It started with dreams. The first night away, I woke tangled in sweat-damp sheets, the smell of wet earth thick in my nose. In my dream, I stood at the edge of the forest, unable to move, spirals drawn in dew at my feet, voices whispering in languages I'd never learned. Somewhere behind the trees, someone cried my name, first in a stranger's voice, then in my own. Each morning, the details faded, but the feeling lingered, an ache in the bones, a longing for something I could never quite name. In the city, I saw pines in places they didn't belong, saplings sprouting from cracks in the pavement, shadows cast on office walls that twisted into spiral shapes. On my commute, a girl with spiral scars on her arms sat 3 seats away on the train. When I looked up, she was gone. Sometimes, I'd find myself standing at a window, staring at nothing, tracing patterns on the glass. At night, my phone would buzz with blank messages, just a string of spirals, no sender. I called Ashgrove once, just to hear a familiar voice. The line crackled with static. A woman answered, her voice echoing and far away. "Don't come back," she whispered. "You won't leave twice." The nightmares grew. I dreamed I was walking through endless pines, every step pulling me deeper. I forgot my name, my face, my purpose. I was only roots and hunger and memory not my own. Sometimes I woke with pine needles in my hair, dirt beneath my nails. Sometimes, as I brushed my teeth, I caught glimpses of something standing behind me in the mirror, tall, thin, its face lost to shadow. I stopped talking about hollow pines. But sometimes, when the city is very quiet and the wind shifts just so, I think I hear it again. The low, patient song of the forest, calling, calling, always calling. I remember the girl at the edge of the woods. I remember her warning. But more and more, I remember the trees. The dreams grew deeper, longer, harder to shake. Sometimes, in my sleep, I'd wake to the sound of the bell, far off, muffled by earth and pine needles, but so real it made my teeth ache. Each night, the forest grew closer, first just a feeling, then a smell, then the heavy press of green-black dark against my skin. I stopped setting alarms. I began to fear the hours just before dawn. My friends noticed. "You seem distracted lately," they said. "You're not yourself." I tried to smile, to blame work or the city or the weather, but I knew the truth. I was being called. One evening, as rain lashed the window, I opened my laptop and found a new email. No subject, no sender. Inside, a single image, grainy, almost lost in shadow. Spiral carvings on wet wood, pale fingers brushing dirt away. Beneath the photo, 3 words, "The roots remember." I deleted it, but the next morning, my coffee cooled in my hands as I stared at the same spirals, etched by dew on the glass, drawn in the dust on my kitchen counter. I stopped trusting my memory, my eyes, even the stories I'd once told myself about who I was. One day, I walked to the park near my apartment. The pines there were nothing like hollow pines, small, well-tended, wrapped in the safe geometry of city life. But the wind through their branches still sounded like voices, almost familiar. A boy played nearby, tracing spirals in the gravel with a stick. His mother called, and he looked up at me, eyes dark, as if remembering me from a dream we'd both forgotten. He smiled. I didn't. That night, I dreamed I was standing at the edge of hollow pines again, the trees waiting, patient as old grief. Someone stood beside me, maybe Kayla or Jamie or myself in another life. They took my hand. Their skin was cold, soft as moss. Do you remember me? They asked. I tried to answer, but my voice was lost in the rustle of needles. The pines pressed closer, branches knitting the sky into darkness. I woke with my hand outstretched, fingers curled around nothing. In the mirror, spiral scars glimmered faintly under my skin. Some nights, the voices don't wait for sleep. They come in the hush before dawn, when the city outside my window is still and the world feels hollow. I wake with their whispers in my ears, stories, names, and songs I never learned, each a thread pulled tight by the patient hands of the pines. The bell tolls in my dreams, and now I think I hear it while I'm awake. Distant, underwater, summoning the lost and the longing. There are days I cannot remember who I am until I see the spiral scars, pale beneath my skin. Sometimes I forget the faces of my friends, the color of the apartment walls, the date. But I always remember the woods. They have made themselves at home inside me. There are nights when I wake to find I've left the door open. Once, my shoes were muddy, pine needles scattered on the rug. There are hours lost from my memory, filled in only by the echo of a wind that sounds like voices chanting my name. In the mirror, my eyes look older. Sometimes, for a moment, they are not mine at all. I try to warn people now. I write messages online that are quickly deleted, stories that never stay posted for long. I've met others, strangers who flinch at spiral shapes, who speak in half-remembered riddles, who sometimes weep for people they swear they've never met. I have learned this. Hollow Pines is not just a place on the map, not just a haunted story for sleepless nights. It is a hunger that grows wherever it is remembered, a shadow rooted in the memory of the world. The last time I dreamed of the woods, I stood in a clearing surrounded by familiar faces. Kayla, Jamie, Owen, Marcus, and so many more, all waiting, patient as old trees. They smiled, and their mouths filled with earth and roots. They spoke my name, and then it was gone. I woke with the certainty that I would soon return, not in body, but in story, in song, in the spiral scars the forest leaves behind. And so, if you hear the wind through the pines, if you dream of spirals, or find your feet wandering toward lost trails at the edge of town, remember this. The forest remembers every name, but it never gives them back. Years pass, towns change, forests shrink, names fade from the records. But sometimes, when the wind is cold and the moon new, the woods beyond Ashgrove seem deeper than before, full of secrets, full of hunger. Children grow up with warnings. Don't follow the pines after sunset. Don't chase voices into the fog. Never answer when the forest calls your name. Some listen, some don't. Once in a while, a stranger will pass through town, eyes shadowed, wrists wrapped in bandages. They'll pause at the edge of the trees, just long enough for the old fear to rise in the locals' throats. Some will say hello, ask for directions, share stories that don't belong to them. Others will leave small offerings at the tree lean, ribbons, toys, a handful of coins, hoping to placate what waits in the dark. But the pines are patient. In a house on the outskirts, an old man, who used to be a boy with spiral scars, sits by the window, watching the shadows move between the trunks. He hums a lullaby with no words, tracing spirals into the condensation on the glass. His grandchildren giggle, pressing their palms to the window, eyes wide at the shapes in the mist. He does not tell them everything. He knows there are stories better left unspoken. Still, sometimes, late at night, when the fire burns low and the wind howls, he'll whisper a name he barely remembers, a name he lost long ago in the deep, hungry woods. He'll close his eyes and listen to the pines. And deep within hollow pines, the roots stir and the forest whispers back. I remember all of you. End of epilogue. The Hollow Pines.